Hello friends, my name is Vishrut Abhinna and I come from civil service background. Prior to my civil services stint, I had also worked as an assistant professor at a university. I have long been associated with IAS coaching and guidance programs for more than 2 decades now, and currently I am a faculty with Unacademy, which is the most happening place today in the country in the field of online education. And I'm going to talk to you today about a very important subject from the angle of forthcoming civil service examination, and that is 3 farm laws, the much talked about and very contentious and controversial farm laws. We'll understand that what all aspects are there, what all contents are there in the farm laws which are making them so contentious, and why is the government reluctant actually to modify or do away with these laws. So let us first of all let me welcome you to this video, and let us start with the very basic agricultural sector reform laws 2020. First of all, what these 3 agricultural reform laws are, to understand one basic thing is that they were enacted in September 2020. That is, last year in the month of September, the 3 farm laws were enacted, and they were passed by Parliament and they got presidential assent. 2 laws got assent on 24th of September 2020, and Essential Commodities Amendment Act 2020, it got assent on 26th of September 2020. Now, so the first thing to understand is that they were enacted in September 2020, last year. The 3 farm laws have been projected by the center as major reforms. The government is saying that they are major reforms in the agricultural sector. And in fact, as we look into the history of these farm laws, we shall also understand that the Agricultural Standing Committee of Parliament, that is Standing Committee on Agriculture, it had recommended these reform laws to the government, looking at the condition of APMC system in the country. That is the mandi system prevailing in the country in various states. So based on that, government had initially brought in ordinances, and subsequently they brought in bills to replace those ordinances, and finally the bills were passed by both the houses of Parliament, and now they are acts. So government is saying there are major reforms in the agriculture sector, and they will primarily remove the middlemen and allow farmers to sell their produce anywhere in India, because agricultural produces as of now are being sold by farmers mostly through the APMC system, that is the mandi system. APMC is Agricultural Produce Marketing Committee. Different states in India have APMC laws, Agricultural Produce Marketing Committee laws, and farmers sell their produce through APMCs, and state governments who have set up such mechanisms, they also impose a mandi tax, and this mandi tax on the produce, on the trade of the produce, is varying from 1 to 9% in different states. And the existing system is plagued with many problems, as the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Agriculture had suggested. So first of all, the 3 farm laws. First one is the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Act 2020. 24th of September, this date I have given you here, students. I have given this date, 24th of September 2020. This is the date when the bill, after having been passed by both houses of parliament, became an act, as it was on this date that presidential assent or approval was obtained. So President gave his approval on 24th of September. Actually, this bill was passed by Lok Sabha on 17th of September. 17th September. It was passed by Lok Sabha. And after Lok Sabha, it was then passed by Rajya Sabha on 20th of September 2020. Now, after having been passed by both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, the bill goes to the President for his assent, and President gave his assent on 24th of September 2020, and this is how it became a law, an act. Similarly, Farmers Empowerment and Protection Agreement on Price Assurance and Farm Services Act, basically that is regarding the contractual farming. This act also got presidential assent on 24th of September 2020 and became a law. And same way, this bill was also passed by Lok Sabha on 17th of September and by Rajya Sabha on 20th of September and got presidential assent on 24th of September. And the Essential Commodities Amendment Act 2020, which is basically an amendment to the Essential Commodities Act of 1955. This got presidential assent on 26th of September 2020. Because this act was passed by Lok Sabha on 15th of September, Lok Sabha passed it, and then on 22nd of September, Rajya Sabha passed it. And subsequently on 26th of September, it got presidential assent. And therefore, as we can make out, that these three bills were passed by both the houses and presented to the President for his assent, and President gave his assent on two separate dates, 24th September and 26th September. After having got the presidential assent, then these laws were published in Government's Extraordinary Gazette, that was on 27th of September 2020. So the date of effect of these laws actually is not from the day they got presidential assent, but in the law itself it is mentioned that they would be deemed to be effective from 5th of June 2020. That means the date from which these three laws became effective is 5th of June 2020. Why is the date 5th of June 2020? Because that is the date when three ordinances were issued, promulgated by the President concerned with these three bills. Prior to this, we will shortly see that also and understand that how this development exactly happened, because it is very necessary from the civil service examination viewpoint to understand about the legislative history of these bills and how these bills actually got to have the present form and how they have been through various stages and what was the necessity for these bills. All these are very important aspects as far as the forthcoming IAS prelims examination is concerned. That is civil service examination, shortly going to be held on 10th of October. Now, as I said that this brief history becomes prominent from examination angle. So the first thing we should understand, the Standing Committee on Agriculture. It's a parliamentary committee. Standing Committee on Agriculture observed that APMC laws are not being implemented in their true sense and need to be reformed urgently. Because the primary motive behind the APMC system or the Mandi system was to provide remunerative prices to farmers for their produce. So farmers under the APMC laws of the states, they take their produce to mandis, and through the mandis the trade takes place. So number of middlemen are also involved in the process, and mandi tax is also there imposed by the concerned states. So initial philosophy, initial idea of APMC system was primarily to give maximum price of the produce, means the remunerative price of the produce to the farmers, but on account of several problems over the years that was not happening, and therefore the standing committee suggested urgent reforms were required. So central government promulgated these three ordinances on 5th of June 2020. Now this is important, as I already mentioned, that on the recommendation of the standing committee, government had to take some action. Moreover, the present government had, before coming to power, they had promised that by 2022 they would double up the income of farmers. Now given that basically it means that the government must bring about some legislation in order to double up the income of farmers. So they have acted as per their promise, and these new farm laws, reform laws, they are seen as a panacea, as a major remedy to the afflicted APMC system today. We will also shortly see that the present APMC system is actually not giving equitable benefits to all the farmers, but a committee set up by the present government to examine into the APMC system had strongly made a very strong recommendation, saying that only 6% of the farmers are being benefited by APMC system. So the bills were preceded. Now here we are understanding about the ordinances, and we are understanding that the bills which were presented to Parliament in order to replace the ordinances, that means the bills which were presented to Parliament were preceded by three ordinances before being approved by Parliament during the monsoon session by a voice vote. So by a voice vote, Parliament passed all the three bills during the monsoon session. Now this date of 5th of June is very important. It is very important from examination angle also, because although these laws were passed, as I said, by Parliament subsequently in the month of September, and presidential assent was obtained on 24th of September for the two laws and 26th of September for the amendment in Essential Commodities Act. Now that means, and by 27th, that is on 27th of September, they were published in the Extraordinary Gazette of India, the Gazette of India. Now, so to say, therefore, ideally, normally in any legislation, the date of effect is from the day when President gives his approval. As in this particular case, President gave the approval on 26th of September and 24th of September. But it is mentioned in the three laws themselves, means mentioned in the Gazette. If you look at the Gazette on the Government of India side, we find that the date, the Gazette itself mentioned that these laws will be deemed to have come into effect from 5th of June 2020. So the date of effect of these laws, although they were passed in September, is from 5th of June 2020. This is very, very important from this year's examination point of view. Then the three ordinances were promulgated on June 5th, 2020. What was the intent of these ordinances? Why the government promulgated these ordinances is an important thing to understand for us. The Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Ordinance 2020. Now, this is remarkable to understand that the nomenclature of all the three ordinances which were promulgated by the President under Article 123 of the Indian Constitution on 5th of June 2020 is identical as the nomenclature of subsequent bills. Actually, the bills were primarily to replace the ordinances only. So, we can make out and we can see that all the three, the Farmers Empowerment and Protection Agreement on Price Assurance and Farm Services Ordinance, exactly the same language as that of the Act, and the Essential Commodities Amendment Ordinance 2020. So the point we should understand from this is that there existed set of 3 ordinances promulgated by the President on 5th of June. 5th of June, let me repeat, this date is very important from this year's examination point of view. For all forthcoming exams, this date is very important, and it is very important to understand that ordinances were promulgated prior to these bills, and these bills were primarily to replace those ordinances, and after having been passed by both houses of parliament, these 3 farm laws became acts respectively on 24th and 26th of September 2020. However, their date of effect is deemed to be from 5th of June 2020 itself. Now, what was the intent of these ordinances? It is important to understand, because if we understand the intent, means the intention behind these ordinances, we shall promptly be able to understand the laws as well, and we shall be able to understand the implications of these laws as well. So the intent behind now basically was to facilitate barrier-free trade of farmers' produce outside the markets notified under the various state APMC laws. As I already told you, that farmers are selling their produce through APMCs, and APMCs are regulated under various state laws, state government laws, and so it facilitates them a mechanism to sell their produce outside these markets. Anywhere you sell, anywhere at any rate, right? Wherever you get better buyer, you sell them, of course in India. And secondly, define a framework for contract farming. Contract farming, if farmer enters into a contract for his produce with a party, then terms and conditions of the contract are laid down in the contract itself. Then of course the contract can have a minimum period of 1 crop cycle or 1 livestock cycle, and then it can have a maximum period of 5 years as per the law. However, depending upon mutual agreement, this maximum period could be even more than 5 years. So they define a framework, and this framework, it is very important to understand that this is primarily to cushion the farmer against any losses in the eventuality of loss of crops under contract, because it tends to provide protection to the farmer under such a situation. Then impose stock limits on agricultural produce. Now this is important to understand that under the Essential Commodities Act 1955, stock limits were imposed by the government for essential commodities, because the idea at that time was that essential commodities should not be unduly manipulated by people. There should be no black marketing, for example. There should be no hoarding, for example, so that there are no price warps, so that the prices don't spiral up, and by creating artificial scarcity. So that Essential Commodities Act was brought in, and as a result of that, most of these agricultural produces were covered under the Essential Commodities Act. So large scale commodity buying and stocking became forbidden as a result of that. So big players, they were not forthcoming. So what now government has done is, government has deregulated most of these farm commodities, including onion and potato also, and cereals, pulses, oil seeds. Most of these agricultural produces of common use, they have been deregulated. As a result of that, now large scale private investments will be possible. So impose stock limits on agricultural produce only if there is a sharp increase in retail prices. Now the government is saying 2 conditions. Only if there is an extraordinary situation like war or famine, then they would regulate them and impose limits, or if there is extraordinary rise in prices, then they would invoke this limit, not otherwise. So the three ordinances together aim to increase opportunities for farmers to enter into long-term sale contracts. Firstly, as I said, now it is possible because a framework for the contract has been prepared. A framework, it provides a framework, and it provides a cushioning against unforeseen situations as well. So increased availability of buyers, it would facilitate increased availability of buyers and permits buyers to purchase farm produce in bulk. Once deregulated, now farm produce can be purchased in bulk and can be stored and stocked and processed accordingly. If somebody like Big Basket or Reliance Fresh or some big corporation house is buying large quantities to process the agricultural produce and manufacture some edible item, then it is now possible. The stock limits won't be there. Government would impose stock limits only if there is an extraordinary situation like war and famine, or if there is extraordinary price rise. So to say, therefore, this Essential Commodities Amendment Act actually has deregulated many of these agricultural produces of common use. Then the main contentions of the protesting farmers, basically, let us understand this slide, that the protesting farmers on the other hand have expressed, now government is saying that it is going to open up a great avenues for farmers to increase their income, right? And it would also now invite large scale private investments in farm sector. But what the farmers are saying, they are expressing apprehensions that the new agricultural laws would pave the way for eliminating the safety cushion of the minimum support price. Minimum support price, that is students known as MSP, minimum support price, न्यूनतम समर्थन मूल्य. किसान की जो फसल है वो जब मंडी में उसको ले जाता है तो सरकार उसको न्यूनतम समर्थन मूल्य पर खरीद लेती है. न्यूनतम समर्थन मूल्य के बारे में भी अंडरस्टैंड करेंगे, व्हाट इज MSP शॉर्टली. एंड so what they are saying is that it would eliminate the cushion of MSP and do away with the mandi system, wholesale market system, leaving them at the mercy of big corporates. ये apprehension farmers का है कि इससे mandi system will crumble down and they would be rather left at the mercy of private corporates, big corporates. Then what is there in the farm laws that makes them so difficult to digest by the farmers? ये समझने की बात है कि farmers में इन farm laws को लेके इतना रोष क्यों है. The government says that the farm laws open up new avenues for farmers to increase their income. ये तो हमने देख ही लिया कि government is saying that these farm laws are basically intended to increase their income because they will invite large scale investments are possible now, and as a result of that eventually it is going to benefit the farmer. This is what the government is saying. The protesters on the contrary say the new laws will make them vulnerable to the private traders. वो हमने अभी अभी देखा. So a comprehensive analysis of the three farm laws therefore and the contentious issues behind them becomes necessary from this year's civil service examination. Definitely you are going to have a couple of questions in prelims as well as in mains examination from this topic. Now, what are these farm laws and what they provide for? That we should understand. So first of all, the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Act. It basically provides for setting up a mechanism. एक mechanism provide करता है, allowing the farmers to sell their farm produces outside the APMC premises. अभी वो APMC premises भी sell कर सकता है, लेकिन the new mechanism will allow them to sell anywhere in India, wherever he gets better price. एक ऐसा mechanism provide करता है. So this is rather, in a way, if we look at it, this is a very big step taken by the government, that it will pave the way for enhancing the income of the farmers. But of course farmers are expressing their apprehensions, so to that side, whatever their grievances, that also government is looking into those grievances, and currently like efforts are being made for coming to some reconciliable situation or some situation where there is better understanding about the laws and both the sides agree and then move ahead with the progress of the nation. This is what everybody wants. So any license holder trader can buy the produce from the farmers at a mutually agreed prices, right? As I said, this trade of farm produces will be free of mandi tax. अब इसमें ये मंडी टैक्स जो है न्यू लॉज में स्टेट गवर्नमेंट से नहीं ले सकती. तो न्यू लॉज में चूँकि मंडी टैक्स नहीं ले सकती, तो एज ए रिजल्ट ऑफ दैट some of the state governments are also aggrieved because of that, right? Now, Farmers Empowerment Agreement of Price Assurance and Farm Services Act, जो contract farming से संबंधित है, it allows farmers to do contract farming and market their produces freely, right? Now, this is remarkable कि जो restrictions अब इसमें नहीं है, they can enter into the contract with any party and they can freely sell their produce to any party, and they can set the duration of the contract as per mutual understanding, the minimum duration being a crop cycle and the maximum duration being 5 years or even longer depending upon the mutual understanding. The Essential Commodities Act is an amendment to the existing Essential Commodities Act of 1955, as I already told you. This law now frees items such as food grains, pulses, edible oils, potatoes and onion for trade except in extraordinary situation, war, famine, etc. and steep price rise. Except in those situations, they have been deregulated. Now, what is Essential Commodities Act? That also we should briefly understand. Essential Commodities Act of 1955, students, there are two important things to understand in that. Number one, Essential Commodities Act is an act of the Parliament of India that was established to ensure the delivery of certain commodities. Now, to ensure the delivery of certain commodities or products, the supply of which, if obstructed due to hoarding or black marketing, would affect the normal life of the people. यानी कि होर्डिंग और ब्लैक मार्केटिंग इन कमोडिटीज़ की हो जाए तो उससे नॉर्मल लाइफ अफेक्ट हो जाएगी, इसलिए होर्डिंग ना हो, ब्लैक मार्केटिंग ना हो, इसलिए ये एसेंशियल कमोडिटीज़ एक्ट 1955 में बनाया गया. उसमें अभी अमेंडमेंट हुआ. तो दिस इंक्लूड्स फूड स्टफ्स. इसमें क्या क्या थे? फूड स्टफ्स थे, ड्रग्स, दवाइयाँ थी, फ्यूल एंड other products. Mainly these three: food stuffs, drugs and fuel. This act was modified by the present Essential Commodities Amendment Act 2020 along with the Indian Farm Reform Laws. So this is one of the reform laws which facilitates reform in the farm sector. The government has presented these laws as reforms akin to 1991 opening up of the Indian economy. जैसा कि हम जानते हैं 91 में there was a big crisis in Indian economy. And as a result of opening up of Indian economy and as a result of privatization, liberalization and globalization, our economy could successfully come out of that situation. So the present farm laws are termed akin to that by the government. It is a major reform in that sense, that in order to take the farm sector out of the present depressed state to a progressive and prosperous state. That is the whole idea behind this. It is argued that the three laws open up new opportunities for the farmers so that they can earn more from their farm produces. That is the whole idea, that farmers should be able to earn more from their produce. And the government has said that the new laws will help strengthen basic farm sector infrastructure through greater private sector investments and participation. Greater private sector investments. Successive governments have found financial constraints in investing in farm and rural infrastructure. Government के पास में हमेशा जो है resources, because the government resources are being used in for millions of purposes. So resources are always in that sense limited. Although government is the largest spender in the country, but at the same time it has to spend money for millions of purposes, and therefore there are always constraints. And these constraints at times did not make it possible for the government to make large scale, massive investments in farm and rural infrastructure. Although a lot of development has been done on these fronts as well. It is argued that with food markets growing exponentially, जैसा कि हम जानते हैं कि food markets are growing exponentially in India, private players would make agriculture profitable for the farmers. Eventually ये है कि farmers को remunerative prices मिलनी चाहिए. Farmers should not suffer. जो produce है farmers की, उसकी उनको जो भी अधिकतम मूल्य मिल सकता है, क्योंकि farm sector, agriculture sector has long been a neglected sector, and conditions of farmers have to be improved drastically, and this is good for the overall progress of the nation. And therefore what I'm saying that we have to look at it holistically from all perspectives, and from examination angle, that holistic analysis is more important, so that we are able to find the correct answers to the questions in the exam. No, but farmers are worried over MSP assurance. What farmers are saying the MSP assurance has emerged as the main sticking point in the farmers' protest. वो चाहते हैं कि जो न्यूनतम समर्थन मूल्य है वो सरकार गारंटी कर दे. There is an apprehension among the farmers that the allowing outside APMC trade of farm produces would lead to lesser buying by the government agencies in the approved mandis. जब lesser buying होगी तो धीमे धीमे मंडी जो है उनका हो सकता है रेलेवेंस कम हो जाए. तो ऐसे में दे आर एप्रीहेंडिंग कि जो अभी उनको मंडी से इनकम होती है, पर इसमें समझने की बात यह है कि शांता कुमार कमेटी, एज आई ऑलरेडी पॉइंटेड आउट, हैज सेड दैट only 6% farmers of the country are being benefited by APMC system. Now this therefore must be kept in view while analyzing the entire situation. Now the protesting farmers say the new laws would thus make MSP system irrelevant, and they would not have the assured income from their farming. Right now the government announces fixed MSP for around 2 dozen crops, 23 crops precisely. उनके लिए गवर्नमेंट MSP अनाउंस करती है, उसको भी हम शॉर्टली देखेंगे. हाउएवर पैडी, वीट एंड सम पल्सेस, मतलब चावल, गेहूँ एंड सम पल्सेस, दे आर द वंस दैट आर प्रोक्योर्ड बाय द गवर्नमेंट एजेंसीज एट द APMC मंडीज. जो मैक्सिमम प्रोक्योरमेंट होता है फूड कॉरपोरेशन ऑफ इंडिया के द्वारा APMC मंडीज़ के थ्रू, तो अधिकांश जो प्रोक्योरमेंट है वो चावल और गेहूँ और पल्सेस का होता है. Now the working of the MSP system has been such over the years that it benefits only a handful of farmers at all India level. So this is a very remarkable point. इसके लिए जैसे मैंने आपको बताया, शांता कुमार कमेटी was set up by the Narendra Modi government in 2015. It said only 6% farmers benefit from the MSP regime. Only 6%. 6% farmers benefit from the MSP regime. मतलब इसका, in other words, 94% farmers are not able to have access to APMC or mandis, and they are not able to get remunerative prices. Now this is very important. We are a democracy, and small and marginal farmers, they should be looked after more by the government actually. So government should develop such systems which go to helping small and marginal farmers, because small and marginal farmers are very large in numbers. This 94% chunk, most of these are small and marginal farmers. If the benefits of a particular system are not reaching small and marginal farmers, then it is a moot point for everyone to ponder over as to what kind of system we have and whether such a system requires drastic reform or not. Now the catch here is that the farmers of some states such as Punjab and Haryana, the MSP system has worked very well. In Punjab and Haryana it has worked very well. These farmers have been benefited over the years as a result of the MSP system. But as I said, it has worked very well in Punjab and Haryana, mainly very successfully. In these two states, procurement of paddy and wheat range for around up to 80%. Now, so the fear that the MSP system may crumble and get dismantled after the new farm laws are implemented has become a very emotive issue. It has become an emotive issue for the farmers of Punjab and Haryana particularly, and that is why they are the ones who are most vocal in their protest against the farm laws and demanding their MSP should be made mandatory for both APMC and private mandis. This is a major demand of farmers. The government is looking into that demand also, and Supreme Court is also looking into that. Let us hope that some good solution will soon be struck out. Now, there are about 7,000 mandis across the country. 7,000 mandis across the country, from where the government agencies, including FCI, Food Corporation of India, purchases farm produces. However, in a practical sense, only paddy, wheat are procured by FCI and other agencies for want of funds. Now, this is very important. Food Corporation of India, which is a government agency, it procures paddy and wheat in large quantities from farmers at Nyunatam Samarthan Mulya, that is MSP. Now, MSP on the one hand is increasing, but the food grains which are procured by Food Corporation of India, they are being used primarily in welfare schemes. And in welfare schemes, government cannot increase the price of rice and wheat. Normally 2 rupees, 3 rupees a kg, 4 rupees a kg. It's very minimal prices are there. As a result of that, what is happening is that there is a gap, there is a huge gap between the procurement price and the sale price, which is resulting in huge debts for the FCI, Food Corporation of India, and resulting in fiscal deficit for the government of India. Now, FCI sells these food grains to below poverty line families through PDS, Public Distribution System, as we all know, at concessionary rates, and this is a loss-making, welfare-oriented. Primarily, this is a welfare-oriented scheme, but it is a loss-making, very welfare-oriented. वेलफेयर में प्रॉफिट लॉस नहीं देखा जाता. वेलफेयर में पब्लिक का वेलफेयर करने के लिए गवर्नमेंट कटिबद्ध है, बाध्य होती है. लेकिन इससे फूड कॉरपोरेशन ऑफ इंडिया का जो बजट है वो इट हैज़ गॉन completely out of control as a result of that, because over the years government is not completely compensating it for the deficit, and then as a result of that it is borrowing, and we will shortly see that its debt has mounted to lakhs of crores. The MSPs have been consistent in increasing the MSPs, that is the minimum support prices, have seen consistent increase. मतलब they have been consistently increasing. MSP तो बराबर बढ़ता जाता है, क्योंकि फार्मर्स का डिमांड रहता है कि उनका कॉस्ट ज़्यादा आता है, तो MSP का फॉर्मूला है, because MSP is being decided by Commission for Agriculture Costs and Prices. तो उनका फॉर्मूला है कि जो कॉस्ट प्राइस है फार्मर का प्लस 50% कॉस्ट प्राइस से MSP डिसाइड होता है. तो फार्मर्स का कॉस्ट प्राइस बढ़ता जाता है तो MSP बढ़ता जाता है, making the FCI pay more for farm producers and bear more losses at the PDS rates, because PDS के rates तो remain the same more or less, as I said, welfare scheme. Now, rising procurement by means the FCI, that means that the FCI godowns are overflowing. अब एक तरफ तो procurement बढ़ता जाता है, तो गोडाउन में जितनी रिक्वायरमेंट हमारे को फूड ग्रेन्स की होती है, FCI को जितनी रिक्वायरमेंट होती है उससे कई गुना ज़्यादा, उससे कई अधिक परचेज हो जाता है, तो उससे गोडाउन्स आर ओवरफ्लोइंग और उसमें वो फूड ग्रेन्स रॉट. एंड दूसरी चीज़ ये है कि ये सेल भी नहीं कर सकती ईजीली, बिकॉज इट कैनॉट सेल दीज कमोडिटीज़ इन इंटरनेशनल मार्केट ईजिली. वाई? फॉर टू रीजन्स. नंबर वन, इंटरनेशनल मार्केट में ही जो फूड ग्रेन्स है, सीरियल्स है, उनका प्राइस कंपेरेटिवली कम होता है, तो प्राइस FCI का जो प्राइस है वो कंपेटिटिव नहीं है, तो इट इज़ नॉट एबल टू सेल. सेकेंडली, जो ट्रेड रेजीम है, वर्ल्ड ट्रेड रेजीम है, उसमें आप जो वेलफेयर स्कीम के लिए फूड ग्रेन्स है वो इंटरनेशनल मार्केट में सेल नहीं कर सकते. दो रीज़न है. तो उसकी वजह से FCI का डेट भी माउंट होता जा रहा है और गवर्नमेंट का फिजिकल डेफिसिट भी बढ़ता जा रहा है. The government compensates FCI for its losses and at times sells food grains to some countries under an agreement also. Agreement के हिसाब से वो food grains sell भी करती है, right? But जैसे मैंने बताया कि FCI का जो डेट है वो माउंट होता जा रहा है. FCI का डेट, प्रेजेंट डेट जो है वो 3,81,000 करोड़ से भी ज़्यादा है. 3,81,000 मतलब लाखों करोड़ में इसका कर्जा हो गया है, क्योंकि फार्मर्स को तो न्यूनतम समर्थन मूल्य से प्रोक्योरमेंट हो जाता है फार्मर्स से, और वेलफेयर स्कीम के लिए वो जो है एकदम मिनिमल रेट के ऊपर सप्लाई होता है। तो जो डिफरेंस है वो डिफरेंस या तो गवर्नमेंट कंपेंसेट करे, तो गवर्नमेंट सब्सिडाइज करती है और हर बजट में सब्सिडाइज करती है, लेकिन एक सर्टेन एक्सटेंट तक सब्सिडी होती है। गवर्नमेंट ने पिछले कुछ सालों से 100% सब्सिडाइज नहीं किया है इसे, मीन्स दे हैव नॉट कंपेंसेटेड FCI टू 100% एक्सटेंट। एज ए रिजल्ट ऑफ दैट FCI इज़ बोरोइंग, और उसका जो डेट है, जो उसका लोन है, वो लाखों करोड़ में पहुंच गया। तो द राइजिंग फूड बिल अंडर द एग्जिस्टिंग MSP सिस्टम ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट ट्रांसलेट्स इनटू प्रेशर ऑन द फिस्कल डेफिसिट। फिस्कल डेफिसिट का स्टूडेंट्स मतलब होता है सरकार का खर्चा ज़्यादा है, इनकम कम है, तो जो गैप है उसी को फिस्कल डेफिसिट कहते हैं, वो एनुअल बजट में रिफ्लेक्ट हो जाता है। दिस इज़ द रीज़न वाई एवरी गवर्नमेंट इन द पास्ट सेवरल ईयर्स हैज ट्राइड टू फाइंड, अब गवर्नमेंट तो दे विल ऑलवेज ट्राई टू फाइंड अ वे आउट कि कैसे इससे मतलब हम इक्विटेबल सोल्यूशन निकाल सकते हैं। वो आवश्यक भी है, क्योंकि इन द लॉन्ग रन इट शुड बी बेनिफिशियल टू लार्ज नंबर ऑफ फार्मर्स मस्ट बी एबल टू गेट रेम्यूनरेटिव प्राइसेस ऑन द वन हैंड, बिकॉज वी हैव सीन इन द एग्जिस्टिंग सिस्टम actually farmers are getting the benefit, but only 6% farmers are getting the benefit of MSP system. Now some states are unhappy with the new farm laws as it denies them the right to collect fees from outside mandi trade. जो outside में mandi trade होगा, मंडी के outside में trade होगा, उससे वो मंडी टैक्स नहीं ले सकते। The fee varies from 1 to 2% to about 8 to 9%। जैसा कि मैंने बताया 1% से 9% की रेंज में वो मंडी टैक्स रहता है इन डिफरेंट स्टेट्स विच आर्ग्यू दैट दे ऑलरेडी हैव लिमिटेड सोर्सेस ऑफ रेवेन्यू। उनके रेवेन्यू के सोर्सेज पहले से कम हैं एंड दे आर हैवीली डिपेंडेंट ऑन सेंटर फॉर मीटिंग देयर एक्सपेंडिचर नीड्स। तो पहले से ही बहुत सारे स्टेट्स जो है वो उनके पास सफिशिएंट रिसोर्सेज नहीं है और फिर उनकी रेवेन्यूज इससे और भी कम हो जाते हैं। तो दिस एक्सप्लेन्स वाई स्टेट्स पर्टिकुलरली दोज रूल्ड बाय द ऑपोजिशन पार्टीज आर सपोर्टिंग फार्मर्स प्रोटेस्ट ओवर द न्यू फार्म लॉज। अब MSP के बारे में भी एग्जामिनेशन एंगल से स्टूडेंट्स थोड़ा सा अंडरस्टैंड करते हैं। MSP इज़ फिक्स ट्वाइस ए ईयर। पहली चीज़ समझने की तो ये है कि MSP जो है फिक्स ट्वाइस ए ईयर ऑन द रिकमेंडेशंस ऑफ कमीशन फॉर एग्रीकल्चर कॉस्ट एंड प्राइसेस। इट इज़ कॉल्ड CACP, इज ए स्टैट्यूटरी बॉडी अंडर द मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ एग्रीकल्चर एंड फार्मर्स वेलफेयर, which is a statutory body and submits separate reports recommending prices of Kharif and Rabi seasons to the government. CACP submits its recommendations to the government, as I said, in the form of price policy reports every year, separately for 5 groups of commodities. 5 group of commodities के लिए ये 5 groups of commodities के लिए ये सबमिट करती है रिपोर्ट्स। कौन कौन सी? एक तो खरीफ क्रॉप्स, राबी क्रॉप्स, राइट, इस साल में 2 बार अलग अलग सीज़न होता है। फिर शुगर केन, रॉ जूट एंड कॉपरा, ये 5 कैटेगरीज। आफ्टर कंसिडरिंग द रिपोर्ट एंड व्यूज ऑफ द स्टेट गवर्नमेंट्स and also keeping in view the overall demand and supply situation in the country, the central government takes the final call on this. तो वो स्टेट गवर्नमेंट्स के भी व्यूज़ लेती है और जो एग्रीकल्चर कमीशन ऑफ एग्रीकल्चर कॉस्ट एंड प्राइसेस है उसके रिकमेंडेशन को भी ध्यान में रखती है और डिमांड एंड सप्लाई को भी ध्यान में रख के फाइनली सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट टेक्स अ फाइनल डिसीजन। So currently MSP is for 23 crops is recommended by CACP, Commission of Agriculture Costs and Prices, which comprise 7 cereals। 7 तो cereals है इसमें, 7 cereals है, यदि आप इसको देखेंगे 7 से paddy, wheat, maize, sorghum, pearl millet, barley and ragi, plus 5 pulses है इसमें। 5 pulses में मतलब दालें हैं, ग्राम, चने की दाल, तुअर, मूंग, उड़द, लेंटिल, ये 5 है, ठीक है। फिर प्लस इसमें 7 ऑयल सीड्स है। 7 ऑयल सीड्स से कौन कौन से? ग्राउंड नट, रैपसीड, मस्टर्ड, सोयाबीन, सेसमी, सनफ्लावर, सैफफ्लावर एंड नाइजर सीड्स। तो ये 7 ऑयल सीड्स है, प्लस 7 कर दूँ। फिर प्लस 4 कमर्शियल क्रॉप्स है, कॉपरा मीन्स ड्राइड कोकोनट, शुगर कैन, कॉटन एंड रॉ जूट, तो प्लस 4 कर दूँ। तो ये 23 कमोडिटीज़ टोटल हो जाती है जिस पे MSP होती है, डिसाइड होती है based on the recommendations of CACP, Commission of Agricultural Costs and Prices. So students, thank you very much for watching this video. My name is Vishrut Abhinna, and you follow me up on my further videos on Unacademy platform. I am shortly also going to undertake a plus course on polity and governance on the Unacademy platform. You join me there too. Thank you so much.